Welcome to HFY Codex. If you love epic sci-fi stories where humanity shines, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for thrilling HFY adventures. Join us and be part of the journey. The screams behind the glass. Hallways were cold and silent, only broken by the sound of distant screaming. Bright lights shone above, but there was no warmth. This was not a hospital. It was a prison made to look like one, and deep inside it, locked behind layers of glass and metal, was the alien princess named Zirla. Her silver skin shimmered even under the harsh lights, and her glowing blue eyes were filled with fear. She had been locked inside this small room for weeks, maybe. Longer time meant nothing here. Every day, she banged on the glass wall, shouting that she was not mad. No one listened. The guards passed by, eyes cold, pretending she was invisible. But on this day, someone new entered the hallway. He was human, young, wearing a gray uniform and carrying a toolbox. His name was Jack Reed. He worked for the Galactic Medical Department as a law-level repair technician. He had no authority, no weapons, and no reason to stop. But when he walked past her glass room, he paused. Zirla was screaming again, her voice echoing off the walls. Jack looked up and met her eyes. For a moment, everything went quiet. Her lips trembled, but her voice softened. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave me here." Jack blinked, unsure what he was looking at. Was this the unstable alien he had heard about? Rumors said she was dangerous, violent, and mentally broken, but she didn't look broken. She looked terrified. "Hey," Jack said softly, stepping closer to the glass. "Are you okay?" "No," Zirla replied, pressing her palm against the glass. "They say I'm mad, but I'm not. They locked me up because I found out something." Before Jack could ask more, a voice came from behind him. "Technician?" barked a tall alien guard. "You're not allowed to talk to the patients." Jack stepped back quickly, nodding. "Sorry, just checking the panel." He pointed to the blinking console near the glass door. The guard narrowed his eyes but didn't push further. He walked away. Jack waited until the guard disappeared, then turned back. "I'll come back," he whispered. Zirla nodded slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks. She had waited so long for someone to believe her. Maybe this human would be different. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. Her eyes haunted him. He had seen madness before, but Zirla's fear felt too real, too sharp. Why would they lie about her? What was she hiding that was worth locking her up? The next morning, Jack returned to the ward under the excuse of system maintenance. He brought tools, but he also brought something else: curiosity. He found a small vent that led near her room and began working. Through the vent, they could talk without being heard. Zirla told him everything. She had discovered a secret project run by the Alien High Council. They were experimenting on her people, draining their life energy to power ships when she tried to stop it. They labeled her unstable and threw her into the ward. "No one believed me," she said. "They erased every record of what I saw." Jack didn't know what to think. It sounded insane, but she didn't sound insane. And the way she spoke, the details she knew, the pain in her voice, it felt real. "What will they do to you now?" Jack asked. "They talk about something called Protocol Erase," Zirla said, her voice shaking. "They plan to wipe my mind." Jack's heart pounded. This wasn't just about lies or control. This was about silencing someone forever. He looked through the vent and saw her sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. She looked like a prisoner awaiting execution, not a madwoman. That night, Jack checked the facility's schedule. He saw a file hidden deep in the system. It read, "Protocol Erase. Subject ZYO11 scheduled for deletion in 3 days." Subject ZYO11 was her. He stared at the screen for a long time. He had two choices: walk away and forget her, like everyone else, or take the biggest risk of his life. As the hallway lights dimmed for the night cycle, Jack whispered to himself, "I'm not leaving her there." Behind the glass, the screams had stopped, but the silence was worse. Zarella sat quietly, eyes closed, waiting for the end. She didn't know that one human had decided to help, and that changed everything. Whispers of rebellion the next morning came, but the screams did not. Zarella was silent, sitting in the far corner of her glass room. Her body was still, but her mind was racing. She knew what protocol erase meant. In 3 days, everything she was, her memories, her powers, her truth would be gone. Outside, the world moved on. Guards walked their rounds, doctors scribbled notes, and machines beeped quietly. No one saw her anymore. No one, except Jack Reed. Jack returned, carrying the same toolbox as always, but today his hands were shaking. He wasn't just a repairman anymore. He was planning something dangerous. He reached the hidden vent again. Pretending to check the filters, Zarella was waiting, her blue eyes locked onto his. "You came back," she said quietly. "I told you I would," Jack whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was near. "They're going to erase you in 3 days." Zarella nodded, her voice low and calm. "Yes." She said, "Unless I'm gone before that." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Gone? How?" "This place is locked tighter than a warship." She leaned closer to the vent, her voice like a whisper carried by the wind. "There's a way," she said, "but I need help. And I need trust." Jack hesitated. He was just a technician, a nobody, in a galaxy full of soldiers and spies. But something in Zarella's voice, in her eyes, in her story called to him. He had seen good people crushed before, and he had stayed quiet, but not this time. "What do I have to do?" he asked. Zarella looked surprised, then her face softened. "You have access to the hallway schematics, right?" Jack nodded. "Then find the back route that leads to the old medical storage." She said, "It's no longer guarded, and it connects to the outside maintenance chute." He thought for a moment, then smiled weakly. "I remember that place. The old wing before they built the new ward. No one goes there anymore." "Good," Zarella said. "That's where we'll start." Later that night, Jack returned to his room in the workers' quarters. He pulled up the facility map. On his old datapad, his fingers traced the forgotten corridors, blocked passages, and hidden doors. Yes, there it was, the path she spoke about. But if they caught him, he'd be charged with aiding a fugitive. Or worse, helping a traitor. Jack sat in silence, thinking. But then he remembered her words, her eyes, her truth, and something in his heart clicked. He couldn't let fear stop him now. The next day, Jack brought her a small device hidden inside his toolbox. It was a voice scrambler legal in most systems. He slid it into the vent carefully. "With this, you can mimic the security ID," he whispered. "It'll help you bypass the first door when the time comes." Zarella took it with shaking hands. "You risked everything for this," she said. Jack smiled faintly. "I think I've already chosen my side." As the days passed, they planned carefully. Zarella taught him about the guards' blind spots and patrol routes. Jack studied the facility's power grid, finding moments when the lights dimmed just enough for shadows to hide them. But danger was always close. One night, Jack overheard 2 alien guards talking near the cafeteria. "Protocol erase has been moved up," one said. "The council wants it done tomorrow night." Jack felt cold. He had less than 24 hours. That night, he returned to the vent in panic. "They moved it forward," he said. "We have to do it tomorrow." Zarella closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them, calm and ready. "Then, tomorrow we fight," she said, "not with weapons, but with will." Jack looked at her, this fragile, glowing being trapped behind glass. And yet, she was stronger. than anyone he'd ever met. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was a rebellion. And it started with a whisper, a human and an alien, one believing, and the other refusing to be forgotten. Tomorrow, the rebellion would begin. The escape protocol asterisk, the lights flickered in the psychiatric facility that night. Most thought it was a routine glitch. Only one man and one alien knew it was part of something much bigger. Tonight was the night. There would be no second chance. Jack. Reed stood outside the maintenance closet, his heart pounding. His fake security badge was hidden under his jacket. Inside his toolbox were 2 stolen access chips, an energy cutter, and a smoke pellet he had bought from a shady trader years ago. He had never used it until now. Behind the glass, Zarella waited. Dressed in a gray patient uniform, her long silver hair tied back. She looked calm, but Jack could see the fire. In her eyes, she wasn't scared anymore. She was ready. Jack glanced at the clock. They had less than 10 minutes before the midnight shift began. That was the window, the only time the guard station switched control. Ready? He whispered into the comlink. Zarella touched the small device behind her ear. Ready? She said firmly. Jack disabled the cameras in corridor for using the first chip. He pulled open a side panel and cut the power to the magnetic locks. For 5 seconds, that was all they needed. Zarella's glass door hissed open silently. She stepped out barefoot, eyes sharp, breathing fast. This was her first time outside in weeks, but she didn't pause. They moved quickly through the side corridor. The walls were dark, filled with dust and old tech from decades ago. No one came here anymore. That was why it was perfect. Jack led the way, holding up a small flashlight. Zarella followed close behind, her steps silent. She had memorized the escape path like a map in her mind. Suddenly, a noise echoed ahead. Footsteps, heavy and slow. Guard patrol, Jack hissed, pulling her into a storage room. Inside, it was pitch black. They pressed against the wall, not even breathing. Through the gap in the door, they saw a tall alien guard walk by. He paused, sniffing the air, then moved on. Zarella leaned closer, whispering, "They're using scent trackers." Jack cursed under his breath. They had to move. Faster, they reached the abandoned medical wing. Where the walls were cracked and the lights barely worked, here. The air felt different, older, forgotten, but up ahead, their path was blocked. A rusted emergency door stood in their way, sealed tight by age and neglect. Jack pulled out the energy cutter and began slicing through it. Sparks flew, lighting up Zarella's face in the dark. She kept watch, her body tense, her powers humming just under the surface. "Almost there," Jack whispered, sweat pouring down his face. Finally. The door creaked open just enough for them to slide through. On the other side was the maintenance chute. It led to a lower level and old supply tunnel that connected to the outer hangars. From there, they could disappear. But just as they entered the chute, the alarm rang, a loud, shrieking sound that echoed through every wall. "They know," Zarella said, eyes wide. "They must have spotted the door cut," Jack replied. They began crawling through the chute fast, their hands scraping metal and dust. Halfway down, a blast shook the tunnel. The upper hatch was sealed again. They were now officially fugitives. When they reached the lower exit, Jack kicked open the rusty hatch and pulled Zarella out. They stumbled into the moonlit air, the stars. Above, wide and free, for the first time, Zarella felt the night breeze on her face. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled, but there was no time to celebrate behind them. Searchlights began scanning the grounds. They ran into the shadows, toward the forgotten transport hangar. There was a small hover skiff hidden there. Jack had spotted it weeks ago during repairs. It wasn't fast, but it could fly. They reached the hangar just as drones passed overhead. Jack jumped into the pilot seat. Zarella took cover behind some crates. He powered up the skiff, fingers flying over the controls. The engine sputtered to life, lights blinking weakly. Come on, he muttered. Cirella climbed in. Just as the first laser shot hit the ground behind them. Go! She shouted, the skiff lifted, shaking and groaning. They burst through the open roof. Dodging searchlights and pulse shots, Jack pushed the engine to its limit, and soon, the facility disappeared behind them. Cirella looked back, tears in her eyes. She was free, but only just. Now, they were fugitives in a galaxy that believed she was insane and dangerous. Jack looked at her and said, "We're not safe yet." "But we're not going back." Cirella nodded. "No," she said. "We go forward now." And so they flew into the darkness, two strangers bound by truth. The escape was only the beginning. The real fight was still ahead. A planet that hates her, the city lights below glowed like stars on the ground from above. It looked beautiful, peaceful even, but Cirella knew better. This was no havenette, was the heart of the empire that had tried to erase her mind. The skiff Jack stole was barely holding together. Its right stabilizer blinked red, and the fuel meter screamed empty. Jack guided it down through the fog, searching for a place to land. "We can't go to any ports," Cirella warned. "They scan all ships for ID." Jack nodded, sweat dripping from his forehead. "I know a place," he said. "Old cargo zone, hasn't been used in years." They landed between rusted metal containers and broken tower frames. The air smelled like oil, trash, and burnt wires, but it was safer now. Cirella stepped onto the cracked ground, her body shaking from the escape. Her hands trembled, but she hid it well. Jack placed a blanket over her shoulders. "You're freezing," he said softly. "I've been colder," she replied, looking around the dark alleyways. "This city, it hates people like me." Jack didn't reply, but he understood. This planet Veralis Prime was a shining jewel of the Galactic Alliance. But only for the powerful, for the weak, the different. The voiceless it was a cage. They hid in an abandoned maintenance shelter under a collapsed highway. It was dark, dusty, and filled with spider-like bots crawling across the ceiling. But it was safe, at least for one night, that night. Cirella told Jack more of her past. She had once stood in front of kings and leaders. She had once held the power to command fleets. But when she spoke the truth about the secret energy project that fed off her people, everything changed. They called her mad, stripped her title, and erased her records. "They took everything," she said. Eyes wet but voice strong. "My name, my history, my voice." Jack sat quietly. Then he said something that surprised even himself. "Then, let's take it back." The next morning, the news was everywhere. Fugitive princess escapes mental ward. Human technician wanted for treason. Warning: do not approach subjects. They are armed and dangerous. Their faces were on every screen, in every corner of the city. Cirella stared at her own image, a twisted version of herself, eyes edited to look wild, her voice replaced. "With madness, they've made me into a monster," she whispered. Jack looked at the screen, then at her. "No," he said. "They're afraid of what you know. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast." Cirella remembered something. "A priest," she said suddenly. "He helped me before they locked me up." Jack raised an eyebrow. "A priest?" "He lives in the inner slums, under the old temple ruins," she said. "He believed me when no one else did." They traveled on foot through the lower levels of the city. Every checkpoint was guarded, every alley full of eyes. Cirella wore a hood, and Jack kept his face down. One wrong move, and it was over. The slums were different. Here, people didn't ask questions. They had their own problems. Alien refugees, broken droids, sick children. It was a world ignored by the rich. At last, they reached the old temple, half buried in rubble. Inside, it was quiet, lit only by hanging lanterns made from scrap. An old alien sat cross-legged. In the center, his eyes closed. "Zarella," he said, before even opening his eyes. "I knew you'd return." His name was Ilaran. A priest of the Forgotten Order. He listened to her story with a calm face. Then he opened a box from under the floor. Inside was a glowing crystal green and gold, pulsing with soft light. "This," he said, "is the truth they tried to destroy," Zarella gasped. It was the data crystal from her father's chambers. It held the records of the Energy Project, the secret labs, and the deaths they caused. The last copy, the only proof. Ilaran handed it to her. "It must be shown to the galaxy," he said, "or more will suffer." Jack looked at the crystal, and then at Zarella. "Where can we take it?" "There's a station," she said. "Orbital level 6, Sector 40. My mother's old friend runs a broadcast node there." Jack nodded. "Then we go tomorrow," he said. "But tonight we rest," as they lay on the old stone floor. The city above them buzzed with fear and lies. But deep below, hope began to glow, not just in the crystal, but in the hearts of two fugitives who were ready to rise. The planet hated her, but soon it would hear her. The betrayal within Asterisk the morning was colder than usual. Clouds of gray mist floated between the shattered buildings. Zarella stood near the broken arch of the temple, holding the glowing crystal close to her chest. This small thing carried the truth. It carried the weight of her people's suffering, and the key to exposing the Empire's darkest secret. Jack joined her, carrying a datapad filled with codes and locations. "I hacked into the transit schedule," he said. "There's a freight train leaving 4 Orbital Lift Station 6 in 2 hours. No guards, just cargo and broken tech." Zarella nodded. It was risky, but it was the only way to reach the upper station. They couldn't take public lifts or shuttles, not with their faces on every warning screen. They thanked the priest, Ilaran, and slipped quietly out into the shadows. Moving fast, staying low, they reached the freight yard. It was noisy and full of tired workers. None of them paid much attention. They climbed into the last car, hiding behind crates of spare droid parts as the train rumbled forward. Zarella looked out through a crack in the wall. "The city faded into the distance," she whispered. "We're almost there." But not everyone wanted them to reach that place as they rode upward through the twisting rails of the orbital lift. Jack's comlink blinked, a private message from someone he hadn't heard from in years. "It's me, Kara, from Engineering Base 9. I saw your name in the alerts. Meet me, I can help." Jack's heart skipped. Kara had once been a close friend, maybe more. He didn't tell Zarella right away. He wasn't sure why. When they reached the halfway station, Jack made an excuse. "I need to get us some supplies," he said. "I'll meet you at the south platform in 30 minutes. Zarella hesitated. She didn't want to split up, not now. But she trusted him. "Be careful," she whispered. Jack nodded and disappeared. Into the crowd, he found Kara in a quiet corner of an old repair bay. She looked the same: sharp eyes, fast hands, the kind of person who could fix a ship with tape and a prayer. "You really did it," she said, crossing her arms. "You broke her out." Jack nodded slowly. "She's not crazy," he said. "She's telling the truth, and I've seen the evidence." Kara didn't smile. Instead, she pulled out a badge, silver, cold, and marked with the symbol of the Galactic Internal Security. "I'm sorry," she said. "They offered me a deal. Your charges will be dropped if I turn you both in." Jack took a step back. "Kara." "Why?" "I tried to forget you," she said, her voice cracking. "But they said she's dangerous, and you're just being used." Jack's hand reached for his cum, but it was too late. Guards burst into the bay, weapons raised. They grabbed Jack and hit him in the back with a stun rod. His vision blurred, pain burning through his spine. As he fell, he whispered, "Zarella, run." Back at the south platform, Zarella waited, but something felt wrong. Her fingers curled around the crystal. Her heart beat faster. Then she saw them 2 guards scanning the crowd. Holding Jack's photo, she turned and vanished into the shadows. Before they saw her, Zarella ran, ducking through hallways and into vents. She didn't stop until she reached the emergency tunnels. Her breath was shaking, but her mind was clear. Jack was captured. They betrayed him, and now he'd pay them. Price for helping her. Tears stung her eyes, but she wiped them away. "No," she whispered. "They won't win." She reached into her cloak and held up the crystal. It still glowed softly, her only weapon now. If she couldn't save Jack yet, she would at least finish what they started. Meanwhile, Jack woke up in a cold, bright cell. Metal walls, energy, bars, and a buzzing sound in the back of his skull. Across from him, Kara watched quietly. "I didn't want it to end like this," she said. Jack looked at her. "You think they'll spare me?" he asked. "They won't. Maybe not," she whispered. "But it's too late now." Jack closed his eyes. Not in fear, but in hope. Because he knew Zarella was still out there. Still fighting, still running, still believing. And she wouldn't stop until the truth reached every corner of the galaxy. Even if it cost her everything. Mindstorm the prison wasn't like the ward. It was worse. Jack lay strapped to a cold metal table, surrounded by machines that hummed like bees in a hive. Needles hovered above his skin, and a bright white light burned above his eyes. This wasn't a place for criminals. It was for silence. For people the galaxy wanted to forget. In the far corner of the room, behind a glass wall, stood a doctor with steel skin and no mouth. The machine spoke for him. "Begin memory extraction." It said. Jack's heart pounded. He bit down on the mouthguard they forced into his jaw. His mind burned as electricity crackled along his nerves. But even as pain screamed through him, he held on to one thought: Zarella, somewhere far above. Zarella ran through a tunnel filled with leaking pipes and red warning lights. She had reached the top level of the orbital station. Her cloak was torn, her hands were dirty, and her feet bled. But she didn't stop, not while Jack was still a prisoner. She had tried to send the crystal through a public broadcaster, but the signal was blocked. The Empire had already locked down all systems. They weren't just chasing her anymore. They were shutting her out. She only had one option left: the core room, the heart of the station. Hidden inside a locked zone only accessible to high-level staff. If she could connect the crystal there, she could stream the truth to every public screen in the galaxy. It would be loud, unstoppable, and permanent. But she needed to get past the guards first. Back in the prison, Jack's strength was fading. The machine buzzed again. Memory thread. Detected. Subject Zarella. "No," Jack groaned, twisting against the straps. "You're not taking that?" Suddenly, alarms blared. The doctor paused, turning its head. "Unauthorized breach in Deck 5. The system announced Zarella had reached the lift. She used the last of her psychic energy to fry the scanner. Opening the doors by sheer force of will, her body shook, her nose bled, but she didn't stop. Inside the core room, rows of energy. Conduits pulsed with power. In the center stood the broadcast tower spire of light and code. She climbed the stairs 2 at a time, dodging patrol bots and jumping over sensor beams. She reached the terminal, slid the crystal into the port, and whispered, "Let them hear." A blast of golden light shot through the tower. Screens all across the orbital station flickered. Then, in every city across the Empire, one image replaced them all: Zarella's face. Glowing, fierce, and unbroken. Her voice echoed from 100 planets. "This is Zarella, daughter of House Virel. They tried to erase me, but I survived. They fed on the energy of my people and called it progress. They locked me in a cage and called me insane, but now you will see the truth." The data flowed: videos, names, hidden reports, bodies left behind in cold labs. The crystal revealed it all. In the prison, the machine buzzed wildly. The doctor looked up in confusion. Jack used the moment to twist his wrist free, grab the needle from his arm, and stab it into the machine's core. Sparks flew, and the restraints dropped. Jack fell to the ground, but forced himself up. He staggered out of the cell, alarm screaming behind him. He didn't know where Zarella was, but he knew she had done it. He could feel it in the air. All over the station, people stopped to watch. Guards lowered their weapons, citizens cried. And some shouted in rage. The truth had been buried for years. Now it was brighter than any star. Zarella fell to her knees in the courtroom, her strength finally leaving her. Her body shook, and her vision blurred. She had done it, but she didn't know if Jack had survived. Then the door opened. Jack stumbled in. Blood on his shirt, but alive. Their eyes met across the room. "You made it," she whispered. "You did too." He smiled, collapsing beside her. They didn't say anything more. They just sat there, side by side, surrounded by lights and sparks. Two fugitives, now heroes. Two broken souls, now complete. The galaxy had seen the truth, and it could never unsee it. The princess who was never mad *, the galaxy had changed overnight on every world. In every system under the Empire's flag, the truth echoed like thunder. Zarella's broadcast had burned its way into public memory. The lie was exposed. The princess wasn't insane. She had never been on a distant moon. A crowd gathered in silence around a public holoscreen. Children watched with wide eyes. Parents held hands. And old veterans saluted. They all saw her face, the silver-skinned princess, with glowing blue eyes, calm, fierce, and real. She wasn't screaming behind glass anymore. She was leading, but not from a throne, not from a palace, from the shadows. From the broken places the Empire tried to bury, Zarella and Jack had gone into hiding again, not out of fear, but to prepare for what would come next. The Empire would strike back. They always did. In a hidden base carved into a mountain cave, Zarella sat before a large table with rebels, refugees, and former soldiers. Some were aliens with scars from the energy fields. Others were humans tired of being tools. She looked around and said, "They called me mad so you wouldn't believe me, but now we are many, and they can't silence all of us." Jack stood in the back, his arms crossed, his wounds healing slowly. He didn't speak much now. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. He had become the man who believed when no one else did, and that made him more dangerous to the Empire than any weapon. The rebellion spread like fire. Zarella's words were shared in secret tunnels, in pirate broadcasts, in encrypted messages bouncing from one planet to another. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a symbol one day. A small girl with pale green skin approached her. "My mother said you were sick." The girl whispered. Zarella knelt and smiled. "I was never sick, little one," she said. "They just didn't like what I knew." The child nodded, understanding more than most adults ever could. Then she hugged her, and Zarella closed her eyes, letting the warmth sink in. This was why she had fought so hard. In the following weeks, protests erupted on city worlds. Government agents defected. Scientists came forward with files to support her claims. The Empire was cracking, not from war, but from truth. The High Council released a statement they called the reports enemy propaganda. They offered rewards for Zarella's capture, but the people didn't listen. Too many had seen. Too many had believed. Back in the mountain base, Jack watched Zarella record another message. Her voice was steady, her words simple. "To those still trapped in the system, keep going," she said. "To those who believed in me, thank you. To those who fear the truth, fear only grows in silence." When the broadcast ended, Jack walked up to her. "You sure you're ready for it?" "This?" he asked. Zarella looked at him with tired eyes but a brave smile. "I was born ready," she said. "They tried to rewrite my story, but I'm writing it now." With my own hand, Jack nodded, placing a hand on her shoulder. Then let's give them an ending they'll never forget. And so the story of the princess who was never mad became legend. Not because she had power, not because she was royalty, but because when the world turned against her, she stood tall. And when one human chose to believe her, everything changed. They were no longer fugitives. They were founders of a new truth, one built not on fear or lies, but on rebellion, hope, and the courage to speak. In the end, the glass that once trapped her became a mirror to the empires. Shame and the screams they silenced became the anthem of a new dawn.